Welcome to Simon on the Sofa. We're in London today and I have an amazing guest, Charles Eisenstein. Stein, is I saying that right? Yeah. Welcome to London.
Thanks.
And as always, if you know, I just like to start with a singing bowl just to get myself into the space. And I've had a conversation this morning with Charles already, a little introduction to each other, and I've been following his work and his message for a long time, and I'm just I'm really happy to bring this conversation to you, so I hope you enjoy it. So thank you again. I know I've said thank you a number of times this morning. I'd like to just, right where we are right now in this space, you know, what are you feeling? But also I like what you said to me prior, is that from a place of transparency, but also a place of transparency with no pretense, like why we're here, what we want to share, and also what I really love, because we've got so much richness in what you're bringing to the world at the moment, you know, with your books and the videos and the message, and I know that it's also broken down in really beautiful ways. So whatever we touch on today is perfect. So I'll let you have the freedom to just, whatever you're feeling like sharing at the moment, share. And then I know there's a couple of things like, you know, the people's message, and there's certain aspects of things that I would like us to maybe cover.
I mean, I have no agenda for it. You know, I'm happy to let it evolve as it goes. I did want to acknowledge that, I mean, like, you know, it's kind of presented as a conversation, but in the back of my mind, there's the knowledge that we're being filmed. So it won't be quite the same conversation we'd have if we were just alone together, you know, because we've got, you know, our friend number one, friend number two, cameras. So hi, friends.
Welcome.
Here we are.
Totally. Yeah, that's lovely. And that's a great point, because when we are filming conversations, we really want to. What I really want to play with is that I know, you know, and I know you've been on camera many times, so I'm sensing we're probably quite a little bit more comfortable than some. So what's really nice is when we can forget about them as well and just go into, you know, why are you doing what you're doing right now? Why are you sat here in London with me? And you know, you've travelled to London, you've got a number of meetings, and there's a great talk tonight with Polly Higgins. You know, why are you doing that? Yeah,
well, I'd like to be able to say that it's because of my selfless dedication to this more beautiful world that I believe that I know is possible. But actually, really, if I'm honest, the reason I'm doing it is because I have a lot of fun doing what I do, and I really enjoy it. And I look forward to these trips and to speaking. I'm kind of a performer, actually, you know, and I love doing it. Yeah, and that comes across, doesn't it? It comes across when you're presenting and showing and so on. But you know, you really do enjoy doing it. But you've chose. I mean, you know, people might call you a visionary, or you know, when you're bringing, you know, philosophical views and new ways of our human species surviving, evolving, and moving through. What's even more rich, and you know, and I say this because I too enjoy the path I'm on, is what's even more rich is that there is an element, and it might be our own preconceived judgment of this, but there's an element of real meaning to that as well. Do you feel that, or you just feel no, it's just enjoyment? There's the meaning to what it is. Well, I think that the enjoyment and the meaning is inseparable.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're, I was about to say, if you're just living a kind of a hedonistic life, you're not going to get enjoyment from that for very long, because there'll be that feeling of meaninglessness underneath it. But I don't want to use hedonistic in a pejorative way.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with dedication to pleasure if in fact our deepest pleasure comes in doing something meaningful? You know, so like, I don't think that there's necessarily this division between, you know, what's fun and what's meaningful, and like the meaningful thing that has to be deadly serious. Right. Like, I think like the revolution's got to be fun.
Totally. I love that. No, please. If you want to throw in there, I'm just agreeing with that, because I agree. Like, it's not like, oh, this is a nightmare. I've had to come to London today, and it's like, you know, it's a grunge, and it's a war, and it's a battle. You know, it's got to be enjoyable. And it's like, you know, it's like this hard thing, and because I'm doing this hard thing and overcoming pleasure and overcoming desire, then I get to think of myself as good. You know, and I think that really, like, our whole messed up civilization
is built on doing the hard thing. We call it conquering nature, overcoming the self, out-competing everything else. And look what the result has been, you know? And I think everybody knows that it's time to try a different approach. Yeah. But we're so used to the good thing being the hard thing, and we're so used to struggle, and we're so used to scarcity.
Yeah.
Like just living in the money economy, scarcity is all around us. You know, we're so used to all these things that even when we're trying to create a totally different world, we still fall into those habits. Like I do. I'm using the word we because like I'm just as much subject to these habits as anyone else.
Yeah, we're just as much conditioned, right?
Yeah.
We're part of that, you know, that part of the conditioning that we've been born into.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's indoctrinated to us in an early age, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you resist the indoctrination, then you get labeled as you know, someone with a problem.
Yeah.
ADHD or my favorite is ODD, oppositional defiant disorder.
Did you make that up? You made that up?
No, that's an actual psychiatric category.
Really?
Yeah. You might have had that.
I've probably got it. I'm probably experiencing it now.
Yeah.
So it's ODD.
Yeah. So you're labeled as, you know, and then you can be medicated, you know.
Yeah. Straight jacket.
Yeah. Or you know, then you maybe lash out in some way and generate unpleasant consequences for yourself and others, and eventually then you are broken to it because you think, well, I guess rebelling is futile and dangerous, and I guess they're right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So it's an interesting point as well, isn't it? Because as we're moving, it's such a complex. It's not so black and white. The evolution of our species, is it? It's not just like, you know, all of a sudden we've got this idea that we're just gonna, you know, go from here to there and it's all going to be plain sailing. There's a whole heap of stuff that we've got to, you know, shed. And then, like you said, we get labelled along the way. So if you're you've got philosophical views, or you're a bit of a visionary, or you've got some different ideas or whatever, then actually you're shunned upon, like you say, like you've got a disorder, you might need a straitjacket, you're cracking up, you're mental, you're an activist.
Well, it's not even that you have to have like different philosophical ideas. I mean, it could just be like, I'd say most teenagers, maybe all teenagers, have some feeling that the world is not supposed to be this way.
Yeah.
You know, the life that's offered to me is normal. It's not normal at all. Life is supposed to be more free. It's supposed to be more joyous. You know, it's not supposed to be like this. And what is it supposed to be like? Well, that model is never offered, and that voice that says it's not supposed to be this way is contradicted by everything around us. You know, if you're a good boy, then you do as you're told, and you get good grades in school, and you build your resume, you know, and you play along with this world. And so that voice, that lonely voice that says it's not supposed to be that way, eventually it gets shut down, and you decide to suppress your urges to the contrary and play along. And that's called maturity, you know, being broken to the system. And that's why, I think that's why youth and the things that young people do are so threatening to older people in our society, because the spirit of youth reminds older people of what they've lost.
Yeah, interesting.
You know, this idealism, we call it idealism, which is the world is supposed to be better. And a lot of kids, a lot of young people, or anyone young at heart, is going to think, like, I'm not going to sell out. You know, I'm not going to go along with this. I'm going to do something that I really care about.
Yeah.
You know, and eventually you accept the sad truth that life is just about getting by, about making a living, achieving financial security, and maybe if I work really hard, I can have an early retirement and finally do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is part of the ideal, part of the construct. Because I know you've mentioned before as well about how children, teenagers, whatever you want to call it, is that we've also been taken away. What you're speaking about there, the idea of that, and I know you call it a gift economy, but the idea of that gift of life is taken away from such a young age, though, isn't it? Yeah, because even now, because we might go, okay, well, even teenagers now, but teenagers now are being born into, on many respects, I'm generalizing a little bit, but in many respects are being born into an indoctrination that still seems to be, from my perspective, not celebrating the gift, not celebrating the gift of life, not celebrating the gift of what we are, of what we potentially really are beyond all these labels, you know,
well,
limitations.
The thing that you were talking about at the beginning, you know, about living a meaningful life, like what does that really mean? You know, I think that comes down to the gift, you know, because we're all born with gifts and we all desire to express those gifts. You know, we want to do something beautiful with our lives, and if we instead accept that the purpose of life is just to get through, to survive, that's not about the gift. That's about taking as much as possible, you know, enjoying security or something like that. But I think that all people have an irrepressible desire to give, to give of their gifts. We're all gifted.
As a natural, you mean as a natural instinct, as a natural...
Yeah. I mean, if you're ever in a job where you're not giving your gifts, you're going to feel like I wasn't put here on earth to do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Which so many people are experiencing at the moment.
Right.
On a mass scale.
Right. Yeah. And the only reason people stay in those jobs is because they're insecure.
Yeah, fear. The fear's there. I was at a talk last night, a sharing circle last night, and people were, it was about integrity and communicating and expressing who you are and being, you know, working on this idea of what you really want to bring to the world, and most of what people are communicating was coming from a place of fear. Yeah. I mean, like scared that they might lose their job, scared they might lose their mortgage, scared they might lose the boss, don't want us to communicate what the boss is really saying, and withholding truth based on the fear of losing the job.
Yeah.
But so if that's happening, we know that's happening in jobs in society, and we know that there's a society is collapsing in many areas of, you know, of our humanity at the moment, you know, with the financial crisis and so on. But are we just part of that transition? Are we part of that process? Are people going to start to really feel? Are they? I know they are between some of the people we maybe mix with, but is it just a small minority that are really waking up to the idea that we're living a lie? Or from the perspective, I say living a lie broadly, meaning like from the perspective of we're not expressing our gifts, we're not shining who we really are, what we really want to say?
I think more and more people are waking up to it. And part of it is just like this maybe awakening of consciousness. But I think a lot of it is because the lie is getting less and less fun to live.
Yeah.
And less possible to live.
Yeah.
You know, like in the old days, if you played by the rules, like we were just saying, and you got good grades and you built your resume and you worked hard, went to university, you know, then you were pretty much guaranteed of getting a good job.
Yeah.
Now, and the job would come with good benefits, you know, and you'd have security and
pension plan or whatever.
Pension, right? Like it would work, you know.
Yeah.
Now, like you play by all the rules, and it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
You still get fired. Your pension still gets cut.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't get any accolade. Yeah. You're sacked. Yeah.
Right.
No money.
Right. Or it's not just in the financial or the economic realm. Like you know, you play by the rules. You do as the experts say as far as diet goes, and you go to the doctor and you get your checkup, you know, and you think the doctor can fix anything, and then you get one of these new diseases, some autoimmune disease or something like that, and you go to the doctor, and he says, oh well, I can't find anything. It must be all in your head, you know, or it's incurable, you know, and so in one way or another, the old reality that we lived in is breaking down, and so I think we're being pushed and pulled into a different world.
Yeah, but whether you're aware of it or not, whether you like it or not.
Right.
It's like it's happening, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You don't. Like you can't stay there and you don't want to stay there.
Yeah.
But you're afraid. So if you're afraid to leave the nest, maybe the mother bird needs to give you a little push.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what all these crises are doing. You know, they're kind of pushing us out of the nest.
Yeah. So okay. So when you say crises, we're talking, you know, micro and the macro. Like even the big crises are like, you know, really stirring the humans up, aren't we? Because you know, because we, at the end of the day, we aren't just a species. I think that's what sometimes we miss. I don't know what you feel around it. We are just a species that are coexisting on this planet. Yeah. And when we take away the idea that we're actually the ones controlling it all, what do you feel from that perspective? Like we're the ones that are actually controlling it all, because we sort of are in control of it to make a choice. Like you've made a choice to shift your perception. I've made a choice to shift my perception, and you know, and that's led us a different way. What do you feel about that in terms of like, are humans also still a little bit egoically deluded that we're actually a part of it, or we are it, and it's just that's unfolding? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
you can say no.
I got a lot to say about that. I mean,
okay.
Like on one hand, I would question that you or I have actually made a choice to shift our perceptions.
Cool, good.
You know,
like, good.
Maybe something happened to you that shifted your perceptions.
Exactly.
You know, maybe you were living in a world and that world stopped working and it became intolerable, and then, but maybe even then, you wanted to shift your perceptions because that world wasn't working, but you didn't know what to shift it to, and then maybe you had an experience, and I don't really know anything about your biography.
No, good, carry on, that's good.
Maybe you had an experience that out of the blue showed you that that reality was much bigger than you thought it was.
Definitely, that's what happened, yeah.
And
I wasn't in control of that. I didn't choose that. I was going down one path, which was to be a lead actor in a film, be Brad Pitt, be Johnny Depp, 12 years, just finished a big movie, and then just I still can't describe it. You know, people start describing it as it's a spiritual awakening or whatever, but it's like boom, there's something else here, and like you're right. I didn't try for that to happen.
Right. Yeah. So we can't take credit for those things.
No way.
Yeah.
No, and I don't want to as well. It's like it takes it away. I don't want credit for it. But something definitely happened.
If I could take credit for my,
would you take credit for it?
Well, then I could think I was better than other people. Because
you wouldn't want to do that.
I made the choice to shift. Why don't you make your choice to shift? You know, what's wrong with you? You know?
Yeah.
But no, that's another thing that comes as a gift. Our spiritual awakening, if you want to call it that, you know, comes as a gift, and not something that you can achieve through your own efforts, I think.
Yeah.
But you can give that gift to somebody else.
Well, I'm glad you just said that last bit, because since it's happened, I've been trying to give the gift to everybody, but it doesn't always work, because you know, there's a conflict in that as well, isn't there? A conflict of like, well, then people, because I never want to proclaim that you need to be where I am and where you are is not good. Do you see what I mean? Although you can see that somebody could enjoy their life better if they shifted. Does that? Yeah.
Well, right. So that gift can only be received if, in fact, their life isn't working for them anymore.
Totally.
You know. But if someone's got a great new job on Wall Street or whatever it's called in England, you know, and you know they're all excited about it, and life is working, you know.
Yeah. And they got the car, the idea of the car, the house, whatever.
The car, the hot girlfriend.
The hot girlfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, and you say, well, you're not really happy, are you?
Yeah.
And you know, you should. Like, that's not gonna...
It's not gonna sink, is it?
Right.
Like, you really need to look at maybe the evolution of our species and coming into a collective consciousness. They're just gonna probably punch you on the nose, right?
Right. But you know that isn't gonna last forever. That their situation, it's not sustainable on an individual level. Like someday you're gonna die. You know, sometimes that's what it takes for somebody to really shift perception.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like
near-death experience. Or,
right. Or going through the dying process.
Yeah. Leaving a job or getting a sack, even like sometimes getting a sack or losing a wife or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when someone is in that place, in the place where the old is kind of falling apart or has fallen apart, and they haven't gotten a glimpse of a larger reality, then the gift can be transmitted, and the gift really is anything that shows somebody that the world operates according to different rules than they thought. So it could be just the gift of like a literal act of generosity, or it could be an act of forgiveness, or just to receive unconditional love. That's what really changed me.
And that changed you what, from receiving unconditional love from your children, or receiving unconditional love from just from from the gift?
No, well, because that was something that didn't really exist in my world, and it showed me that, like, it's a kind of interesting story actually. I don't want to tell the long version, but I was living in Taiwan and I met these musicians who were, they were from Seattle actually, and I really liked them, and they were organizing this music festival. They were just really dynamic, intelligent, brilliant, creative people, and one of the lead guitarists in the band, we became friends, but I really wanted them to like me and admire me, so I was talking to this guy and trying to impress him, but really cleverly, like, so that it didn't seem like I was bragging. So I would kind of, nonchalantly mention that I was fluent in Chinese, and kind of hint that I was making a lot of money as a translator and this and that, and just trying to manipulate,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I realized that he saw through me completely.
You just see the facade.
He saw through it. He saw the whole game, and I felt this moment of terrible shame and like despair. But instead of calling me on it and making me feel bad, after I'd bragged, basically, he was like, "All right, brother, like, I'm happy for you," and I felt such love that somebody could see through me and still love me. That was a miracle.
Yeah.
That showed me that my operating system was way too narrow. And that's the kind of thing that we can pass on to other people.
Yeah.
Even, sometimes it might be just saying something humorous to a clerk in a store.
Yeah.
Something that just doesn't quite fit in to the story. Maybe they're carrying a story of this tedious job and there's all these people and no one appreciates what I do, and like, who knows what world, what thoughts are going on in someone's head.
Yeah.
And so anything we do to break through normality can be powerful.
Yeah, the veil, break through what some call the matrix, but just straight through.
Yeah.
Straight through that there's something you're far more unique and you're here and it's beautiful and I don't know, we're using the gift a lot, but you are that gift and it's fine.
Yeah.
And you're loved and it's okay.
Yeah.
And you don't have to put on any facade or front,
Right.
You can almost be here naked.
Right. Or even like this conversation, like one thing that we can offer people that doesn't quite fit into the usual reality is to be, open and authentic.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at screens all the time and everything's an act.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And so we begin to think that like the whole world is phony and there are no real people out there, and then we feel really alone.
Yeah.
So,
which is happening. The thing is that is heating up, isn't it? That is really getting bigger. People are feeling really alone. Well, that's what that seems to be. This seems to be the reality that I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And like you say, just to even have that authentic listening sometimes. Somebody just to be listened to authentically without like the projection of well, I need to say what I want to say, or I need to you need to go and have this healing, or you got to become more, or be better, or get the new sofa, or have you been here? Have you travelled there? It's like, do you know what I mean? It's we're taken right out of just being here, just being listened to, or just sharing a cup of tea and a conversation. Even sometimes can be far more profound than giving advice, or that's it's great what you bring up. It's like we're not even here to give advice. We're here to say that we're actually vulnerable. But I'm saying I won't speak for you, but I'm here as a vulnerable being who has had a number of experiences and doesn't really know much, and finds myself being able to make noises out of this vehicle and explore, and and it's a damn gift. But it's also indescribable at the same time, and I really, would like to put my efforts into enabling people to see beyond the veil that I was in, which I term as bad. And I say bad not to judge it as bad, but if I look at how I feel now and what I do now to how I felt before I had that awareness, that shift in perception or noticed the gift, you know, it's like you really want to just bring that to the world. So like, you know, when I read your posts on your website or I listen to your talks, it's like, okay, I'd like to bring Charles Eisenstein to the people that, you know, watch the content that I create, because it, you know, as that gift as well. Yeah, do you see what I mean? It's like you just want to do that. Once you have the gift, you want to share the gift, don't you? You want to just make more people. If the tea's nice, you want everybody to drink the tea.
Yeah, I mean that's I don't know. I guess I could say a lot about that, but
you can say a lot about a lot of things.
But you know, I'm thinking of gift cultures, which was every culture actually, you know, before money, but even today. There's this property of the gift that has been widely observed by anthropologists, and that the gift doesn't want to stay in one place. You know, if you so in hunter-gatherer cultures, you know, or primitive cultures, if you receive a gift like some really valuable, sacred, special thing, like you keep it for a while, but then you pass it on to somebody else. And our personal gifts are like that too, or anything that like you're describing, like any amazing experience you've had, you know, any big revelation or something, like you want to pass that on.
Yeah.
You know, any like really cool story someone tells you,
yeah,
you want to tell that to somebody else.
Yeah.
The gift wants to circulate.
Yeah.
And that means that in that context, our whole mentality of competition, hoarding, keeping, controlling, security by having, and by controlling, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because in that gift context, if you have more, that doesn't mean I have less. It means that I have more too, because now you have more to give, because that gift is going to circulate.
Yeah.
And today, you know, we live in a money economy that's the opposite.
Yeah.
Like if you have money and you want to be really secure, you don't give the money away. Like the money doesn't want to go away. You know, you want to keep the money and grow it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, well, I mean, that's kind of, I'm not going to talk too much about that, but that's, you know, where my economics work comes in.
Yeah, no, but I'm glad you brought that up, because we could maybe touch on the idea of I love what you say, which is that we're in a competition. What did you say again? I've forgotten it. I remember it. We're competing for not enough. We're competing for the money, and there's not enough of the money because we've already well and truly, you know, there's not enough. Because if I have a million and I tell you I'm going to give you $1 million, do you remember that? So we can just touch on that a little bit, because that's that competitive nature that we're in, and that's how money is causing so much of the separation, right?
I mean, really, the reason that there's never enough money is that it's because it's created as interest-bearing debt.
Yeah.
So like literally, there's always more debt than there is money in our system.
Yeah.
So it creates this kind of background scarcity, which you think like I don't know, I like to ask really naive questions. Like for example, okay, hunter-gatherers, primitive people, they worked about 20 hours a week to subsist and had enormous amounts of leisure time. And even their work wasn't necessarily that hard. Like they would, you know, go out hunting, which is what people do for recreation today.
Yeah.
Or they would go gathering plants and stuff.
Yeah.
Kids running around, gossiping, talking, you know, like working at a leisurely pace, you know, and
making up the home.
Yeah, anthropologists were like perplexed. Like, well, you know, what happened to the struggle for survival? You know, these people don't seem to work very hard or really have any worries. And so you think, okay, so the naive question is, coming from there, after 5,000 years of technological development and labor-saving devices, why do we work even harder than a medieval peasant or a hunter-gatherer?
Yeah.
And why do we experience labor-saving devices are to save time, right?
Yeah.
Why do we have so little time?
Yeah, they're not working.
Like, what has happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, why do we live in this all-pervasive scarcity? not enough time, not enough money, not enough love, just
not enough friends, not enough connection, not enough.
Yeah,
it's insane.
It's insane.
It's totally insane.
It makes
There's no other ways around it.
What is the purpose of this whole civilization?
What is the purpose? Because you're right. I was speaking to my partner about that the other day. It's like you was pretty much working for 14 hours today. It was working online, doing stuff, writing, sending stuff out, promoting an event, whatever. It's like that's the whole. That's consumed by the doing. It's like we're human beings, but we're actually become human doings.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that I don't want people to hear this and think that to feel guilty for working so much or feel judged, because the system puts us in that position. And it's not like you've succumbed to some delusion. It's people are working hard because they have to pay the bills. They have to pay off their debts. There's pressure to do it. But collectively, we find ourselves in this situation that's crazy. And I think, at least as a first step, it's good to begin questioning it and thinking, why should it be this way?
Because isn't that because to many respects that is a delusion as well, though. It's it takes time to shift the awareness, but when you do shift the awareness, you do see that actually, a lot of what I'm doing is really futile. It's pointless. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing that? Why am I holding up a financial system that is clearly, dysfunctional, corrupt, and not serving the masses because the whole world's in debt? Why is the rainforest being completely ripped apart, supposedly the lungs of our planet being completely ripped apart by humans needing, creating more meat, land, palm oil, whatever it is that we need, which we don't actually need. And then saying that in order to fix that, in order to fix the rainforest, we need 50 billion pounds to do a scheme over a certain amount of time to somehow create some change in our ecosystem. But then we created the infrastructure and we created the systems that are going to help change it, and we created the idea of the money that we're going to need. So there's deep insanity within that. There is deluded insanity within that all, isn't there?
Yeah.
Well, I think there is, even if
Yeah, and a lot of people, very few people understand the details of it, but we all have a sense, and I guess I was talking about this before, that there's something really fundamentally deeply wrong with the way that the world works. And I think one reason that people turn to addiction, to crime, to just maybe laziness, to some kind of withdrawal, is because on a soul level they recognize that there's something wrong, and they don't really want to participate in that. It's a rebellion.
Okay. Because they feel that they don't have the power to contribute to it, even the change of it.
Well,
they feel debilitated by it.
Yeah, or maybe they don't know. They don't necessarily have a vision for the change, or they feel powerless to do anything about it. Maybe it's not just really even conscious. If you ask them, is there something really wrong with the world? They might say, no, the world's normal. Things are okay. The economy's pretty good. But inside, there's a rebellion that prevents them from wholeheartedly participating. So one way to rebel would be to, get addicted to something. Excuse me. To get addicted to something, and which basically is saying, I'm not going to devote my life energy to greasing the wheels of the system, to excelling at my work. I'm going to incinerate my life energy in addiction. So, and we look at that person as having something wrong with them because they could be more fully participating in society, and instead they're sitting around smoking weed.
I hear that.
But that's only a problem if you believe that contributing to society as we know it is a good thing.
Right. And it's a great way of looking at it.
And I'm not saying I don't know. I think that addiction or depression even is a way of withdrawing. It's saying, I don't even want to get out of bed to go to my job.
Yeah, which doesn't fulfill me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And upholds a society that I think is wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or even if you don't know that it's wrong, or think that it's wrong.
Yeah.
Like it's an unconscious thing.
Yeah, it's an innate, it's an inner feeling.
Yeah.
Almost a knowing.
Yep. Or people get adrenal fatigue.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to make themselves get up and do it, but their body just says no.
Yeah.
Not going to let you. And I think that a lot of people now are going through a transition where they had been living in the old world, in the old normal, and it's not working so well for them, but they're trying harder and harder to do it. And then something breaks. Either they lose their job, or they get adrenal fatigue, or they get depressed, or they have some kind of anxiety attack or something like, or their spouse leaves them, whatever, right? It stops working. And then they're in this kind of empty space. And that's normal in a life transition. Other cultures maybe even recognize that. They recognize that there are these big life transitions, and in that transition, maybe you should go on a walkabout. The Aborigines in Australia, they would go for a few months walkabout, or maybe you should go sit in a cave for a year, or go on a pilgrimage or a vision quest or something, this in-between state, and we don't have that. And instead, we don't even allow it. It's like you have to keep working.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe something like depression or addiction is a way of resisting this in-between state, when really maybe what you're supposed to do is nothing.
Yeah, deep. Well, it's funny. Somebody else calls depression deep rest. Yeah, which is actually, he describes it as being very much a space for awareness, awakening, a transformation. But what happens is in the West, or where, it's like, well, no, depression is a problem, like you said earlier, with whatever it might be, ODD, or, it's like, then it's labeled as a problem. So if I've got a problem, then okay, I've got a problem. Then all of a sudden we create that world and reality around having a problem. Oh, I'm a depressant. Oh, don't say too much because she can't handle much, or he can't handle much because they're depressed, right? Oh God, please don't be around them for too long. It's and all of this jazz. Whereas actually, like you say, they could be in a completely different state. So what comes up for me as I'm saying that is it's so layered and so rich. Also does it, because like we're not in control of it as well. Does anything have to change? And is it just going to change anyway? Like me and you, we might die today. We might walk out of here, on our way to Polly's talk tonight with you. We might die, right? So we're gone. But Rise passed away. Life continues, right? So it's also being aware that things are going to happen with or without us, and whatever you and I bring to the world. But is there just this idea that it creates conflict, and there is this vision of like, not a utopian vision, but there really is and I know you sort of described it earlier, like it's happening and it's something's coming through, but it's like, for me, I call it flipping the pancake. It feels like, really, this can happen. Maybe people say I'm a Pisces and I'm just a dreamer, but I'm like, well, if I've had this transformation for whatever reason, I'm like, well, this can happen for everyone, right? Yeah. So, and then I'm not saying that then you create a world that Simon says you should create and you should do this and everyone should be the same. No, diversity. But then I'm really intrigued and curious and sort of optimistic and energized by the idea of what will emerge out of that. Yeah. As you can see, my voice goes high. I get excited.
Yeah. I think it can happen.
Yeah.
But there is kind of a paradox here.
Yeah.
The things that have to happen when you really look at the world and how far the crisis has progressed and how bad things are and
because things are bad, right?
Things are terrible.
We're sat here in the West and we've got a cup of tea, but there's a whole heap of crises going on.
Right. The environmental crisis alone. It's like when you really look into something like forest death, or ocean acidification.
Yeah.
It's like so bad, and the solutions. Sometimes there's not even a solution that's scientifically feasible.
Yeah.
That we know about in terms of conventional science. Sometimes there is, but it's not anywhere close to being politically feasible, right? So you can look at it with a lot of cynicism and despair and say, it's hopeless, it's impossible. It'll take a miracle. But on the other hand, people like you have experienced miracles in their lives. Things that would have been impossible from where you had been, 5 or 10 years ago.
Totally.
So you have optimism because you know that miracles can happen. And so I think that on the one hand, like the doomsayers are right when they say it would take a miracle. But on the other hand,
we're like,
you and I are right because
a miracle can happen.
And so, what is a miracle?
It's
something that's impossible from an old way of seeing the world and possible from a new one. And even on the scientific level, miracles are happening, things that don't fit into the old scientific paradigms. I don't know if you've had conversations with people involved in holistic health or alternative medicine, but every incurable disease is totally curable.
Totally. I mean, I love Bruce Lipton, and I love Greg Braden, and some of the people bringing through some phenomenal information. But instantly your mind, I'm open to it, right? But instantly, it's like the instant conditioned mind is like, that's insane. That can't happen. That won't work. But the evidence, there's more and more evidence coming through. I watched a video this morning, and it's like the evidence is there. It's like you can't dispute it, right? It's happening.
And I think it's going to have to go to that, that kind of edgy alternative science kind of stuff, that's been in a separate category from political activism. But I think that the shift, the revolution has to go to that level. It has to bring that in too. And
what, to bring that into the mainstream, you mean? That's just got to come. More people have got to see that is.
That has to become part of the creative technology that we're using to change the world. The stuff about interconnectedness, and
heart language, heart connection. The electromagnetic field, the heart communicating more than the brain or first.
All that stuff. Even stuff that might be considered paranormal. There's a larger reality knocking at our door, and if we only operate from our old understanding of cause and effect, then the doomsayers are right. It's impossible. But that understanding of cause and effect is breaking down all around us.
Totally.
And so it includes things that are scientifically impossible from the old scientific paradigms, but it also includes things that are politically impossible, socially impossible, or for example, I've seen some projects about reversing desertification, where people are without drawing on groundwater or depleting anything, they're greening the deserts again. It is completely possible to reverse desertification, and when you do that, it also ends up ameliorating global warming and creating new food sources, and it's amazing what these people are doing. And this actually doesn't even involve anything that violates the laws of physics as conventionally accepted. So you could say, well, it's not hopeless. If we devoted all of the energy that we devote to weapons today toward greening the deserts, the planet would be fine. But to do that would require a different kind of miracle.
A different kind of miracle.
It would require a political miracle, a social miracle. So you can't escape. That, in other words, anything practical, anything politically practical, anything that we know exactly how to do it is not enough. So we have to be a little bit impractical, a little bit naive, take on things that we have no idea how to do it.
It's powerful. And it's powerful because this thinking, like you said, call it miracle thinking, just for the conversation, this idea that, the optimism is there and that we could come together and really create a shift. There is definitely, no matter which way you go, like you said, a divide, or some sort of block, hurdle, fight, if you will, because for some reason, the mind, I call it the minds. I don't even know if it's a mind. I know the mind is described as the whole body, and then you say the mind, and you think it's in the head.
It is.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is, right? But I don't want to get caught in that. But the idea that the way that we collectively think in, the way that you and the people that are around you, Mark Boyle, Polly, a number of people that we listen to and we've seen and we've read about, and and it goes back, and they've been around for centuries, right? These people have, with these similar ways of seeing the bigger picture, the gift, as you call it. I suppose I'm going to bring in like politically and you know, looking at like the people. That must be spreading like a wave, like a ripple. That must be spreading into the other minds. Or it's not like what. It's not like. Sometimes I go, why is it just the peasants, right, outside of the castle that are having these, like, you know, shifts in minds and miracles and ways things are going to help and support things, but the people that are really there that could really have a huge influence, why isn't it infiltrating their minds?
It is.
It is. Yeah. Good. Yeah, good.
It is.
Okay. Good. And I'm happy to hear that. I know. Yeah. I'm optimistic that it is, but you know, it's good. Let's arise. Let's bring that in. Yeah.
Yeah. It is. And what happens? I mean, sometimes they'll kind of drop out of their, you know, position in the power structure.
Yeah.
But often what happens is that they kind of privately, they are really interested in something of the new world. You know.
Yeah.
Like. But when it comes time to sit at the board meeting, like they're not going to bring in their recent epiphany or their encounter with a guru, you know, or like that's not going to be part of their corporate decision making.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but the consciousness is growing, kind of like this, you know, submerged. The consciousness is growing, kind of like this recessive gene. You know, that hasn't really expressed yet. But if you talk privately with these people, they're
open.
They're changing too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but you often have organizations. This happens all the time. Organizations making decisions that not a single person in the organization agrees with, because they have their own logic.
Yeah.
They have their own structure that militates against doing certain things and forces them to do other things.
Yeah, as a collective.
As a collective, yeah. A lot of it is the money system.
Yeah.
So even the people at the top who we would love to blame, you know, we want to find someone to blame, you know. Maybe it's the politicians, maybe it's the executives, maybe it's the power elite, the Illuminati, or somebody.
Somebody in the conspiracy world.
We want to blame somebody, you know. Make things a lot easier.
Yeah, of course it would, because it takes it away from having to do the work.
Well, and also you could just eliminate them.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and then it'd be fine, right?
Yeah.
But you find that even the people at the top feel just as much at the mercy of circumstances, and that their decisions are forced upon them as anybody else.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like a conspiracy with no conspirators.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And that's we really want to heighten that as well for people listening, because that is really powerful, because the whole idea of blaming, giving away our power to blaming others is that is a part of the conditioning, isn't it? And that's part of a real indoctrinated program within us. You know, it's like we want to blame family, we want to blame work, we want to blame government, we want to blame, like you just said it all beautifully. But so it really is. So what, you know, the reverse of that is bringing it home, right? Bringing it here.
Well, yeah.
What can we do? Like even like with the gift economy, what can we do what can the individual do right now? Yeah, if we was to like give a sort of, you know, four-step shift into, you know, experiencing the gift more. What comes up for you as you say that?
Well,
that's what I say.
Yeah. I really hesitate to like give a prescription.
I know. Okay.
But I think a lot of people, they kind of know what the next step is.
Okay, yeah.
But they don't have quite the courage to do it. Like I've been in that situation a lot. Like I know what I should do, but you know, honestly, like whatever, or like, you know, I don't want to give up my job and health benefits or something like that. I'm afraid to do that, right? Or maybe sometimes people know that there's something and they don't know what it is. But it's the feeling that's staring me in the face, but I can't see it, you know. So I think that the most important message, I guess, to get from this conversation, maybe it's to begin seeing yourself and as like the purpose of life, you know, as I'm here to give something. I'm here for a reason. And to begin to trust that and to practice that, you know, so to maybe enter any situation with, what am I called upon to give here?
Yeah.
Like I have a lot of habits to the opposite effect. The habits of any situation, what can I get?
Yeah.
You know, oh, I'm meeting a new person. What can I get from this person?
Yeah, always.
You know, in a new room, where is the influential person that's going to help my career? You know, what can I get? Or how can I make somebody like me?
Yeah.
Yeah. How can I make you like me? Like, what can I get?
Yeah. Of what I need, and I need to get that. Yeah.
Right. So one shift to make is to shift towards what can I give?
Yeah, totally.
And even to try it out as an experiment, then and see what happens. You know, you might end up finding that you actually receive a lot more that way too. And to bring that lens then to maybe a career choice, and also to make sure that it's not something that's hard, you know, and like the sacrifice, but to tap into the joy of giving, which everybody's experienced.
Yeah.
You know, like I just, on my way here, I couldn't find my way here. So I asked some people directions, you know. They were happy to give those directions.
Of course.
I didn't pay them.
Yeah.
No one watched admiringly as they gave directions and, you know, and gave them, they didn't get anything, but they felt good.
Yeah.
You know, like that is
natural.
Yeah. That's what we want.
Yeah.
And any other life is eventually intolerable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you're in that, then you're going to be attracted naturally to all kinds of new ways of giving.
Yeah.
You know, which are growing around us. Like all the stuff about gift economy, collaborative consumption, time banking, you know, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
Rebuilding community, just like doing things for the people around you, like all this stuff. Like it becomes really natural.
Yeah.
And you almost don't even need a prescription list, you know.
Which is happening now, you know, there's even these sites like Workaway and stuff where people are going and exchanging time to stay in certain places and working with the families and helping and all, you know, it really is immersion, isn't it?
Yeah, couch surfing.
Yeah. So it's trusting, it's actually taking the courage as well to trust in the unknown at the moment, but know that you are part of that process of life which is bringing that forward, you know, which is really beautiful as well, you know, to just really embody that. I know we're coming to an end. I know there's so much, you know, we could talk about and go in. And I think I'd just like to, you know, is share how, just the last few minutes, is just really share how you know, how it's working for you, living from this space of the gift. Because I know, you know, and I know for me, for example, I'm financially zero in money, and I work day to day, and things sometimes come and there's more and there's less and so on. And as I was saying to you, I do a lot of exchange at the moment. I've noticed a lot of exchange is arising more and more. And I know that you travel around the world sharing this beautiful message about the gift economy in your book, Ascent of Humanity and Sacred Economics. And I know you travel around the world, and I know that every event that you do, or majority of the events you do, are based on that gift. And it's not a donation, it's a gift. It's like, give what you feel it is of value, you know. And do you want to just share a few final words on that? Just how I know you're enjoying it, but just.
Yeah, or you could call it a donation also. But yeah, you know, it's voluntary is the thing. So people, you know, might come to my event and the price will be, you decide. It could be zero, you know, or my book, you know, you could buy it, but you could also read it online. You could get a electronic version at a price that you choose. And you know, people generally, when they receive a gift, they want to give something in return. So, you know, here I am. I'm not starving. My children are all fed. You know, like I'm not getting rich. Occasionally, I do get more money than I really know what to do with, and then I, you know, find ways to give it.
Yeah, put it back in. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to accumulate it. Really, that seems like a waste. You know.
Yeah.
So, and then sometimes I'm like, you know, out of money. You know, and the conditioning of money is still quite strong.
Yeah.
You know, like recently I was invited to speak to more of a mainstream conference, and they were paying me a lot of money. And then while I was there, I wanted to speak at this other event, you know, also, you know, on a gift basis, and the organizers were like, hey, aren't you competing with our conference, you know? And they got really territorial about it.
Yeah.
And I had to make a compromise, you know, and I still did it, but we had to change the venue. It's a long story, but I felt like I wasn't in the flow. And I wouldn't have said yes to this compromise if it weren't for the fact that they were paying me all this money.
Yeah.
And then it actually, ironically enough, they never paid me. So it was like this.
Yeah.
So I made this trip, this long trip, and went through all of that, thinking I was getting paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And
you didn't get paid.
I didn't even get paid, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
About still how conditioned I am, or how I still have this conditioning, and so sometimes I'll shift back into that old way of thinking.
Yeah, of course.
And when I do, I get kicked right back out.
Yeah.
Because you really can't go back.
Yeah, you can't go back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could try to go back to your old life.
It's not happening.
But it would say, no, Simon, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful place to end, I think. I don't know if you feel if there's anything that you feel that needs to be shared at the end. I knew you was going to say no. The reason being is because that is it. Is that once you make that commitment, there's no going back. And I think I think if you agree with me, I think what me and Charles are really sharing with you all is take the step. I think I'm going to end it there. Take the step into the unknown, right?
Yeah, or even trust the process of being taken into the unknown.
I like it.
Yeah.
Trust the process of being taken into the unknown. Yeah, because we're not in control of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not this hard thing that you have to do in order to be like Simon or Charles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sitting on the sofa.
Yeah, thank you.
You enjoyed yourself?
Yeah, I totally have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. I always hug the people that sit on the sofa. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so there you go. Simon on the Sofa with Charles Eisenstein. You can check out his books. Are going to be on the links below, and we've there's just a lot of content online, and I really do urge you and invite you to check out some more of what Charles is sharing. And also, we're going to be bringing to you a talk that he's going to be with tonight as well. So check that out online. It's going to be with Polly Higgins, isn't it?
Yeah.
Polly Higgins, and that's going to be another powerful conversation for you guys to absorb. So thanks for being here. Take care, and sending you lots of love wherever you are.
Bye, everybody.